Hi everyone, welcome back to Newfound Happy Hour. My name is Sarah, and this is the first episode back in a little bit. I took a bit of a break just with Easter, and I was also traveling to Ontario for my friend's birthday and a few other events. So, yeah, I've been busy, which is the norm. But I did want to do more episodes on politics, and like I said, life got pretty busy, but I did want to do one today this week because there is still time to vote. And I did want to just rant about a few things when it comes to this election and stuff that I've seen on social media. And it is Earth Day when I'm recording this, and hopefully when I put it out. And so I do want to talk about some changes that we can all make that will help us save money, save time, and be a little nicer to the environment. Yeah, the first thing I did want to talk about is just the current situation with the election. So I went to vote yesterday on April 21st. Literally took under 10 minutes. I made a quick TikTok about it. It was so easy. There is still time to vote. So if you haven't, you are definitely able to do so by April 28th or on April 28th, sorry. You can look at Elections Canada on their website. It tells you everything you need, how to find out where to go if you didn't get a voter information card in the mail. And I think all you should need is an ID, but depending on your situation, it explains everything there, explains what you need and where to go. And if you're interested in the current projections for your area, you can look at smartvoting.ca. Basically, that tells you how to vote to avoid a certain outcome. And that's definitely what I use to kind of make my decision. But it was only about 100 years ago that women in Newfoundland could vote. So if you are someone listening to this, regardless of if you're man, woman, whatever, everyone should go vote. I think that if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain about anything because you didn't try to change anything. And I also feel the same way on social media. Like, I know it is probably seen as cringe or annoying or overwhelming to engage with people on social media, especially Facebook. And it can be overwhelming, but it can help change minds. That's what I have to believe, at least. And I'll urge anyone listening, like, along with that post I just mentioned, it's clear that there's people lacking critical thinking skills, and I've probably been guilty of that as well, where you see something and you share it and you think it's probably a trusted source. But what a lot of people fail to do is share something without looking into it, and what they're sharing might not be wrong necessarily, but they're lacking context. So, for example, I saw a few people share that when Mark Carney was here in St. John's, he refused to speak with people, fishermen in particular, and there were a lot of people that he was unable to speak with. The venue only had a certain capacity and you had to pre-register to be there. I had a friend who went down who is a Liberal supporter, and she wanted to go in but was denied because she didn't pre-register. She didn't know that she had to do that. So there were many groups of people who were not allowed in. It's not that he was refusing to speak with fishermen. And I'm not a huge Mark Carney advocate. Like, I'm more of an NDP person. I think a lot of us, a lot of you listening, if you took a quiz, there's a lot of online quizzes that you can take to see what party you best align with. I think most people would actually line up with NDP, but because they either don't want Liberals in or don't want Conservatives in, they vote one of those two parties. And that's kind of how smart voting works, unfortunately. But in that situation, I think there was at least 4 people I saw that were sharing that Mark Carney was refusing to speak to fishermen, and it's just not true, like I said. So I messaged them or commented and said this is the situation, and all 3 were like, oh, I didn't know that. And that's fine, but I think in such an important election, and even with anything we share, like, we need to fact check and we need to try and prove ourselves wrong and prove ourselves right, and do that before we share anything. And just things that have been on my mind, and there is a girls only Facebook group here in Newfoundland, and I won't really share what people were saying specifically, but people were talking about their concerns with the election. And the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, said that no one would lose their $10 a day daycare. But historically, this is something he's voted against. And now he's kind of saying that anyone who had it won't lose it. But what we're seeing in the States is that vague things like that, they often do that to kind of push their agenda. So while I might believe him that no one's going to lose their $10 a day daycare, my interpretation is that they'll probably keep it for those already in it, but from an X date or whatever, it'll be changed and no longer available. Just like when they say they won't increase restrictions on abortion, doesn't mean that they won't or can't make it less accessible. And so this is what I mean, like sharing things that say, oh, he's going to support a $10 a day daycare or he's not, or he's going to support abortion or he's not. I think we really need to look into the details there, because in the States, Trump said that he wouldn't increase abortion laws. He would leave it up to the states. But because the language is so vague, there are a lot of doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals who are at risk for being arrested if they help someone get an abortion in a way that someone can deem unnecessary. And these are the risks when people in power oppose certain things. So I'll give an example that's closer to home. There was a clinic in New Brunswick, Clinic 554, I believe. I was just looking into this a little bit. So the premier of New Brunswick, Blaine Higgs, was openly anti-choice, pro-life. And he said that in an interview with Radio Canada, apparently. I haven't been able to listen to that. Basically, for abortion, you can get an abortion in a hospital or you can go to a specified clinic. So, for example, in Newfoundland, we have, obviously, you can go to the hospital, or there is Athena Clinic here, which is an abortion clinic, which provides the majority of abortions. I used to volunteer at Planned Parenthood, and so I'm pretty familiar with that. Planned Parenthood doesn't do abortions, fun fact. It's actually Athena Clinic here. And so this similar clinic in New Brunswick, much like Planned Parenthood here, which gets a lot of funding from the government, and also runs for the most part on volunteers. So shout out to anyone who volunteers at Planned Parenthood, because that's very helpful for people in our community, not just for abortion care, but for things like birth control, pap tests, cancer screenings, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, there was this clinic in New Brunswick, and the premier decided to cut funding to that clinic, and they unfortunately had to close. So while he didn't put a law in place that bans abortion, he did restrict access to it. And I'm not sure about other provinces, but I think that was the only one in New Brunswick, and we only have the one here. So even for people in, rural parts of Newfoundland, they would still have to come into St. John's to get that. So abortion is not easily accessible, even though it's legal and you can get one. But it definitely should be more readily available. So it just goes to show that people can say all they want about what they will and will not do, but their voting history matters and their actions matter. And obviously, if you're someone who is anti-abortion, like I said, you may not put a law in place that will stop people from accessing it, but you can certainly cut funding to a clinic that provides it. And I was just thinking about this earlier today. Like, I think anyone who knows me knows that I'm a pretty big Taylor Swift fan. If I came out tomorrow and said I hated her and hated her music and I wouldn't play it ever again, would you believe me? Because I wouldn't. So, like, I don't know why we share and believe the things that are coming up now at the time of an election, instead of looking at people's actions. And that goes for anything. That goes for relationships too. You need to go based on people's actions and not just their words. I've also seen a few people share things about liberals and how they don't think that children should get gender-affirming surgeries. Children don't get gender-affirming surgeries. This happens over the age of 18. So when people share things saying that that this is something that will be available, it's not. It's also a very long road to do such surgeries. And anyway, that's a long, slippery slope that I won't go down today. But yeah, I'm just noticing these few issues, and I know there's a bunch more, but that's what's been frustrating to me, is that people share things like this without any context or without actually looking into it. And some people are receptive to being corrected or getting more information so that they can learn, but some people are just very argumentative. And yeah. Oh, I just thought of another example too, because this is something that has been on my mind lately, just with a lot of family members getting older and kind of thinking about what our options are when we get older or get sick. And my grandmother passed away last year with dementia. That was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to watch, was someone decline like that. And unfortunately, on the conservative website, it says that they don't support MAID. They give examples like giving MAID to someone who is 18 and suicidal, which is not what the majority of MAID users are. When someone's terminally ill, that is such a important resource for them to have. And so voting in this election, I'm also really thinking about access to that for all Canadians, because that is something that I would want for myself and for my family members who want it. And, there's been people saying that that's not their stance. And to that, I would say there are a lot of uneducated people in this country, and people, like I said, like I've been saying this whole time, who don't fact check. And so whatever's on the conservative website, they can assume that that's what people are going to think they stand for. I don't think that's rocket science. I think you're giving people way too much credit to put that on your website and think that people are going to think that you stand for anything otherwise. So that was something I saw on Facebook as well. So I'm not an expert, but that is what I've been able to make out of all that I've seen. And I went and voted. I feel pretty good about it. Curious to see what will happen. But I will say, for anyone who is voting conservative, and I'm assuming you're doing so for the economy, that's the thing that's been hard too, is a lot of people who are voting conservative, they don't want to ban LGBTQ rights. They don't want to take away abortion. That's not how they feel, but they're either in denial that those things are at risk, or they just really don't believe that it's going to happen. But in my opinion, there's one party where that is a risk, and that is conservative. So I wish it wasn't so. But yeah, that's been probably the hardest thing, is people voting that way, not because they're in support of those things. It's been pretty interesting to wrap my head around. But I do wish that if we were to have a conservative government, everyone who supports abortion as they say they do, or supports LGBTQ rights, I think that if we were to have a conservative government, it would be really great to see all those people, particularly men, continue to speak up and protest and speak their mind on social media about it, because that is what's going to further change minds and, prevent a government from making changes, if that's even really possible anymore. But yeah, sorry for that long-winded rant, but that's where my head is currently at with it. That is what I've noticed. And so, like I said, go vote on the 28th. I believe that everyone is allowed to take off work for that, but it literally takes so little time that you can go before work, you can go on your lunch break, you can go after work. So I would encourage everyone to do that. If you don't come complaining to me or to anyone about how the election goes. On a lighter note, it is Earth Day, and I often reflect on this day about all the things that we do that can help or hurt the environment. And so I wanted to share some things that I do, that I've kind of adopted, or that I try to do as best as I can, to help the environment, reduce waste. I hate being wasteful, and I hate seeing other people be wasteful. If not for the environment, just for our own money and time. And so anyway, I want to share a few things that I do. So one of the things I've been doing a lot recently is making my own soup and my own juice. So me and my partner got really into lemon ginger shots. You can buy these at Freshie. I think they might be $5 or $6 or $7, maybe even more. And at the grocery store, same thing, you can buy these. And the only ingredients are ginger, lemon, honey, and you can add turmeric or cayenne pepper. And they're pretty cheap to make. A thing of ginger cost me under $2 the other day at the grocery store. You can buy a thing of lemon juice for $2 or $3 at Dollarama. And you probably already have turmeric or honey or cayenne pepper, or whatever else you want to put in it. You probably already have that at home, but fairly cheap. And so it saves a ton of money because I like having one of these shots of this ginger lemon juice every morning. So every week or every 2 weeks, I usually just make one big batch. And we've been kind of doing that with our morning ritual. We get up and that's the first thing we have. So I've been liking doing that. You can also make your own soups. You can also make your own oatmeal. I saw someone on TikTok doing that, where you buy the oats and then you put the cinnamon and everything just in this one big container. If you're someone who eats oatmeal a lot, I'm not. But for things that you consume a lot, these are some good ideas to try. Reducing plastic. Obviously, I try not use plastic bags at the grocery store. There's literally no point to put all your tomatoes in one plastic bag. There's no point. You need to wash them when you get home anyway, because everyone's dirty hands have been on them. So putting them in a bag doesn't protect them from anything. All produce, you should not put in plastic bags. They are a waste. And if I ever do use those, which I don't, but if I did, I would probably reuse those for other things, like poop bags for dogs. Like, you can use them for that. At least that's something that they're getting reused for. For other reusable things, you can obviously get reusable straws. You can get reusable paper towel. A gift that I gave for Christmas last year was this papaya brand. You can find it on Instagram or on their website. It's called Papaya. It's a reusable paper towel sheet. And so how many times do you wipe off your counter a day? I notice that I do this quite often. So you literally wipe the counter off, you rinse it, you let it dry, and you can use it like a shit ton of times before it has to be thrown out. And this is also saving us money. Like, who wants to go through a bunch of paper towels and be buying more? And the thing with paper towels that I hate is having to store it. Like, it takes up so much space in a closet. And yeah, I just prefer using these. And they're a good gift too. I also think they're biodegradable. So anything else that you can get that's biodegradable. My hairbrush, for example, I have a wooden one. I have some wooden toothbrushes that I especially use when I'm traveling. Things like that are going to be much easier to break down when we do throw them out. And kind of in the same breath as that, like any brands that are sustainable, that are really environmentally focused, I often try to support brands like that instead of other ones. And I think, like, also to kind of add to that, researching any companies that you purchase from, whether it's like hygiene products, makeup products, whatever it is, to kind of research the company and see if they do have any environmental initiatives, or if they are reusable or recyclable, or just environmentally friendly in one way or another. One thing I used to do all the time before COVID especially was I had a reusable Starbucks tumbler. And anywhere I went to get coffee, whether it be Starbucks or Tim's, I don't really go to either of those anymore. Because if you remember from my New Year's resolutions, one of my resolutions the past few years has been to buy local coffee instead of chains. So either way, I think they still let you do this too, where you can bring your own reusable mug, and then that doesn't waste plastic to do that. And all of these are just little things, but if everyone did them, we would be a lot better off. If not for the sole purpose of saving ourselves money and not having to take out the garbage as often. If I was drinking one of those Freshie juices every single morning, that would be 7 of these little plastic bottles that I'm throwing out per week. And that adds up in your garbage, and I hate taking out garbage. So yeah, just little changes that you can make, and supporting brands that are better for the environment. A couple other things I wanted to mention is, and I mentioned this in my New Year's resolution episode as well, that like I always try and buy secondhand before buying new. So I usually thrift before I go buy anything brand new. And I also work for a company that is a smart thermostat company. So if you're a homeowner, I would really recommend looking into getting a Mesa thermostat, or multiple for your home. This saves so much on electricity bills, which people are pretty upset about right now, rightfully so. So being able to control your heat when you're not home is very helpful for obviously paying for energy in your home, wasting energy that you don't need. And one last thing is, a friend of mine is having a sip and swap event. I feel like a lot of us love having little extra social events where, you can get dressed up and decorate and have cute snacks. And so she's doing a sip and swap where everyone is just bringing perfectly good condition items, and we're just going to trade them. And whatever's left over, we'll donate, and then people can thrift them or they'll go to people in need. So I think that's a super fun event to do with your friends, especially for spring. You can do like spring cleaning. And speaking of the thrifting, I did want to put something out there because I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not, but I was thinking it'd be fun to have some merch for this podcast. And something that I saw Robin Ottolini do, if anyone knows who that is, she opened up for the Rec Laws for George Street Fest when George Street Fest was in August or September because of COVID. And I met her. She's so cool. I'm obsessed with her. Love her music. But something she was doing for her merch was she was thrifting all of the clothes and then putting her own logos or sayings or whatever on it. And so I was thinking that might be a fun way to do merch, but also do it sustainably. So let me know what you think or what you think that should be. But I think I'm going to look into that. I would like to have some merch available. I think that would be fun. And it wouldn't be anything over the top, just like a little logo for Newfound Happy Hour. But let me know what you think on that, or if you have any ideas for the best way to do that. I will say I don't get any monetization for this podcast because I just do it for fun, for my own enjoyment for the most part. But it does cost a little bit of money to host a podcast, like your RSS feed. So it does cost me a little bit of money. And so anything that could help to offset that would be quite helpful. And I do appreciate any support in that way. But I will leave you with two things. One is in honor of Earth Day. One of my favorite songs, actually one of my favorite songs to do for karaoke, is Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas. I recommend everyone go listen to that today. And Rupi Kaur has a few poems on the environment and on the earth. And I think those are really nice to read too. So I'll probably try and find one to post on the Instagram when I announce this episode. But I would recommend anyone to go and I guess just look into other things that you can do that will help the environment and help you to be less wasteful and in turn save you money and time. And I think this all ties together with the election and politics and the policies that are put in place by the government that help or hinder the environment. I do think that we should take advantage of natural resources, of course, but I think it has to be done in a responsible way. And I think that if we take things to the extreme, what good is our oil and our money and our economy if we have really bad climate change like some places in the world are already seeing? So I think it's super important to look into what each party is going to do to help protect the land and the environment from those things. So yeah, it all ties together, doesn't it? But that is all I had to rant about for today. You can find me at Newfound Happy Hour on all social media. Also, don't forget to check out Speed Dating NL. We do have speed dating events that have been going super well, but we always are looking for more men. So please, please go tell the single men in your life that there's nothing to be afraid of. They can meet lots of women. It's a great time. That has its own Instagram at Speed Dating NL. And I will see you next time.